Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everybody, and very welcome to today's session. Before I formally introduce the guest for today's session, I'd like to make a couple of announcements. First of all, this is first of many webinars or live sessions that we'll be hosting to create awareness about STZA and regarding all the queries that we have been receiving on social media and other platforms. So we'll try to make sure that all the queries, all those questions are being answered through one of our sessions. Secondly, the recording for this session will be available on all our platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, that can be retrieved later on as well. Thirdly, we would encourage you guys to comment, to share your comments, add your questions in the comment section, and we can pick it up with our esteemed guest for today's session. So without further delay, I am Hina Nasir. I'm Director Marketing and PR at STZA. We have Abdul Rahim with us and Hamza. I'd like to request Rahim to introduce himself for the audiences, and then we can move on to Hamza. Rahim.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you, Hina. And it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for hosting me. My name is Abdul Rahim. I'm the Chief Information Officer at the Special Technology Zones Authority based in Islamabad. I've been here for about 2 months now. Prior to this, I was the CIO for SCCP. I've worked very closely with the startup ecosystem in the last 3-4 years, been very closely connected to the tech industry, and my background is working in the Middle East, Africa, and Pakistan region. And I've been closely associated with both financial services and technology. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rahim, for that introduction. Hamza, if I could request you to share your introduction with the audiences.
Ji, thank you, Hina, for hosting me today. My name is Hamza Orakzai, and I am the Director Planning and Strategic Communications for Special Technology Zones Authority. Before this, I used to run my own consulting firm by the name of Opportunity, which focused on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and China's One Belt One Road initiative. Simultaneously, I was also serving as sponsor director at National Defense University on their program called International CPEC Workshop, which was one of its kind first joint venture between National Defense University and my company. Apart from that, my company had consulting agreements on projects with the World Bank and Asian Development Bank, as Australian National University, on special economic zones and China-Pakistan Economic Corridor related projects. So overall, in my past 7-8 years, I'd mainly focused on large infrastructure projects and public policy programming. And I think STZA is pretty relevant to my past experience because these are more of special economic zones for technology sector. And we'll talk about it in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we proceed further with formal questioning, I would like to mention that क्योंकि ये एक पाकिस्तानी platform है and we are going live from Special Technology Zone Authority's formal social media pages. We are completely open to conversation in Urdu and English, whatever is a convenient medium. First question, Hamza, if I can ask you. You have been associated with Special Technology Zones Authority from the very start. Could you elaborate for our audiences why was Special Technology Zone created in the first place, and what is the vision behind it?
बिल्कुल ठीक है जी. So I think the importance of technology sector, there has been an epiphany, मतलब एकदम से realization हुई है throughout the globe. खासकर past generations में that technology is the future, because COVID की वजह से जो disruption हुई, तो वो airline से लेके बहुत बड़े supply chains, global supply chains within a day जो है वो एकदम से disrupt हो गए. तो बहुत सारे जो हमारी पुरानी generation के भी लोग हैं, they sat down on Zoom, and now for the first time, I mean, the technology adoption that would have taken probably a decade is happening within months. तो ये reality exist करती थी पहले भी, लेकिन शायद 10 साल बाद ये reality hit करती. कोविड की वजह से वो रियलिटी एक्सेलरेट हो गई है, क्योंकि इफ यू लुक एट द रिपोर्ट्स फ्रॉम 2010 ऑनवर्ड्स, जितने भी बड़े ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं वो फ्यूचर ऑफ वर्क के बारे में बात कर रही है, वो टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर की emerging technologies के बारे में बात कर रहे हैं, which will sort of disrupt the way we live our lives. So Special Technology Zones Authority focuses on creating a platform where Pakistan becomes a technology maker rather than a technology taker. So how do we become that technology taker? That's where special technology zones come in. So the first question or first problem statement जो हमने special technology zone authority address करता है वो ये है कि टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज को अट्रैक्ट किस तरह किया जाए, कि हमारा बच्चा जब ग्रेजुएट हो तो यहाँ पे ग्लोबल कंपनीज जो है वो किस तरह आए। सेकंड बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट जो है वो ये है वो ह्यूमन कैपिटल डेवलपमेंट पे है। सो हम ओवर द पास्ट मतलब सिंस आवर इंडिपेंडेंस वी हैव बीन ग्रोइंग एट अ फिनोमिनल पेस जो हमारी यूथ है। हाउएवर आवर इकोनॉमी जिसमें इकोनॉमिक मिक्स जो है वो लेगेसी सेक्टर्स का काफी ज्यादा है। फॉर इंस्टेंस सीमेंट है, शुगर है, इवन ऑयल एंड गैस से लेके जो है आपके जितने भी एक्सपोर्ट्स के वो देखें तो वो लेगेसी सेक्टर है, वो 4-5% से ज्यादा ग्रो नहीं कर पाती। तो लेकिन हमारी पॉपुलेशन पेस इतनी ज्यादा है कि इट्स नॉट सस्टेनेबल एनी मोर ऑन दोज इकोनॉमिक मिक्स where you can create sustainable jobs. So this was our second problem where the STZA is focusing on, and they are trying to then facilitate technology sector by creating that exponential growth for our youth. So the vision was कि आया हम जो है अच्छा डेवलपमेंट सेक्टर्स में स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स का कॉन्सेप्ट जो है वो ये है कि आप जब ब्रॉडर रिफॉर्म्स नहीं ला सकते तो आप रिंग फेंस करते हैं और आप एक एरिया जो है वो डिफाइन कर देते हैं कि यहाँ पे मैं ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस क्रिएट करूंगा, यहाँ पे मैं फॉरेन कंपनीज या लोकल कंपनीज उनके लिए एक सीमलेस जर्नी क्रिएट करूंगा। तो ये कंट्रीज की मेन फोकस है। ये तीन प्रॉब्लम्स आपस में बड़े इंटरकनेक्टेड है। सो स्पेशल टेक्नोलॉजी जोन्स अथॉरिटी एड्रेसेस ऑल दीज थ्री एरियाज वेयर we will notify a certain area. For instance 100 एकड़ की जगह है, सो मैं एग्जाम्पल भी विजन जो है वो मैं एग्जाम्पल के साथ एक्सप्लेन करूंगा आपको। फॉर इंस्टेंस इस्लामाबाद टेक्नोपोलिस है जो अभी तकरीबन 140 एकड़ पे लैंड है नेशनल इंस्टीट्यूट ऑफ हेल्थ के। सो STZA ने वो जगह नोटिफाई कर ली। अब जब वो जगह नोटिफाई हो गई है तो वहां पे 10 साल की टैक्स हॉलिडे क्रिएट हो गई है ऑन ऑल टैक्सेस, 0 कस्टम ड्यूटीज फॉर 10 years फॉर ऑल बिजनेसेस। देन स्पेशल फॉरेक्स रिजीम जिसमें जो है आप डॉलर करेंसी अकाउंट्स जो है वो ऑपरेट कर सकते हैं, एंड देन फ्री फ्लो ऑफ कैपिटल विदाउट एनी परमिशन फ्रॉम द स्टेट बैंक। तो ये एक मेजर जो है उसके अंदर हम स्टेट बैंक के साथ भी बड़ा फोकस कर रहे हैं बिकॉज द टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर नीड्स जो है दैट आर नॉट बीइंग फैसिलिटेटेड बाय द लॉज ऑफ पाकिस्तान. So we are creating special laws within that 140 acres of parcel to attract big players. अब big players क्यों आएंगे? So जब आप tax holiday देते हैं, आप customs holiday देते हैं, तो आपने already cost of doing business significantly गिरा दी है. फिर उसके बाद अगर आप डॉलर अकाउंट्स ऑपरेट करने देते हैं तो टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनी का प्रोजेक्ट फॉर इंस्टेंस नॉर्मली क्यों कंपनीज नहीं आ रही होती या हमारी कंपनीज क्यों नहीं स्केल कर पा रही होती? क्योंकि स्टेट बैंक की रिक्वायरमेंट्स होती हैं कि आप PKR में 70% रखें या 60% पैसे रखें. तो जब एक फॉर इंस्टेंस सैन फ्रांसिस्को से एक प्रोजेक्ट मिलता है एक टेक कंपनी को और उसने पोर्चुगल में पेमेंट्स करनी है, उसने हंगरी में पेमेंट्स करनी है, सो वो 5-6 लोगों की टीम जो है, एक पोर्चुगल में बैठा होगा, 3 पाकिस्तान में बैठे होंगे, एक जो है वो अफ्रीका में बैठ सकता है. तो वो ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस नहीं होती. यहाँ पे वो लॉज जो है वो हमें रिस्ट्रिक्ट कर देते हैं जिसकी वजह से कंपनी स्केल नहीं कर पाती. So Rahim will shed more light on this. However, so this is what we are doing. So we're decreasing cost of doing business for the technology sector, local technology sector and foreign technology sector. और उसमें भी we will shed light on that and then create that demand. तो एक जो डिमांड साइड है वो हमने क्रिएट कर दी. सप्लाई साइड पे गवर्नमेंट का काम जो है वो है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर देना और ह्यूमन कैपिटल डेवलपमेंट, इन्वेस्टिंग इन आवर यूथ. So these are the 2 areas where we will invest. अब उसके अंदर भी चूंकि हम एक गरीब स्टेट है तो हम जो है वो सिर्फ लैंड को प्रोग्राम कर रहे हैं और हम जो नोटिफाई कर रहे हैं उस लैंड को कर रहे हैं. देन वी आर इनेबलिंग प्राइवेट सेक्टर टू कम इन एंड बिल्ड वर्ल्ड क्लास इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर. क्योंकि अभी बड़ी सारी रिसर्चेस भी आ रही हैं मैं अक्सर पढ़ रहा होता हूँ कि जी इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की क्या ज़रूरत है वो, तो आई एम विलिंग टू शेयर दैट रिपोर्ट एज वेल, वेयर दे से दैट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज डायरेक्टली related to the productivity of human resource. So better infrastructure means better productivity. तो ये एक जो है वो हम at the highest level ये प्रॉब्लम जो है वो हम फैसिलिटेट कर रहे हैं। एंड देन ये जोन जो है ये अक्रॉस पाकिस्तान हम नोटिफाई करेंगे। तो अभी जो है 13-14 जोन हम नोटिफाई कर रहे हैं। द विजन इज कि ये यहाँ जो 100 एकड़ 500 एकड़ या 1000 एकड़ पे जो शहरों में हम नोटिफाई करेंगे वहां पे टेक कंपनी क्लस्टर कर जाए, फॉरेन कंपनी आ जाए। सो आई गिव यू एन इमेजिनेशन ये है कि 5 साल के अंदर आप जब इस्लामाबाद टेक्नोपोलिस जाएंगे जो बिल्कुल चकशेजाद के साथ है, तो वहां पे आपको एक जब आप एंटर होंगे तो इस तरफ जो है वो हाई टेक मैन्युफैक्चरिंग फैसिलिटी शायद मोबाइल की लगी हो। 500 मीटर आप आगे जाएंगे तो जो है आपको मल्टीनेशनल एक 10 फ्लोर बिल्डिंग मिलेगी जहां पे सेल्स फोर्स से लेके IBM से लेके अमेजोन जो है वो बैठेंगे। उससे हल्का आगे जाएंगे तो R&D सेंटर होगा। लेफ्ट साइड पे आपके IBM का ग्लोबल सर्विसेज सेंटर होगा। फिर आपकी एक SME की स्ट्रीट स्टार्ट हो जाएगी, 8-10 बिल्डिंग्स होंगी। वहां पे जो है 2-3 इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर्स होंगे जहां पे स्टार्टअप्स जो है और हमारे जो फ्रीलांसर कम्युनिटी है उनको फैसिलिटेट करने के लिए सब्सिडाइज्ड बिल्डिंग्स होंगी। और फिर आप थोड़ा और आगे जाएंगे तो वहां पे बिजनेस डिस्ट्रिक्ट होगा जहां पे कैफेज हैं। आप कैफे जाएंगे तो एक टेबल पे IBM के एग्जीक्यूटिव बैठा होगा, दूसरी तरफ फ्रेश ग्रेजुएट बैठा होगा जो कि बिल्कुल नई आइडियाज के साथ है। एंड सो दिस इज मोर ऑफ अ knowledge exchange community and a complete ecology। क्योंकि एक मेजर चीज जो चेंज हुई है एंड आई वुड लाइक टू स्ट्रेस ऑन दिस वो ये है कि हम वी आर नाउ एंटरिंग इनटू द एरा ऑफ ऑफिशियली एंटरिंग द एरा ऑफ फोर्थ इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन। सो द थर्ड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन इन 17th and 18th सेंचुरी वहां पे आपकी जो है जो फैक्टरीज ऑफ प्रोडक्शन थे वो आपकी थी कि सेमी स्किल्ड लेबर हो, वोकेशनली ट्रेन्ड। आपके पास फैक्ट्री होती थी, आप फैक्ट्री एंड देन आप जो है रॉ मटेरियल इस्तेमाल करके और एक वो प्रोसेस होके फिनिश प्रोडक्ट निकलता था। अब वो फैक्ट्री की जरूरत खत्म हो गई है। अब आप एक लैपटॉप एक बच्चे को देते हैं और वो वहां पे जाके अगर वो प्रॉपरली स्किल्ड हो तो एक ही कमरे के अंदर 10 बच्चे जो है वो $10 मिलियन का सॉफ्टवेयर क्रिएट कर सकते हैं। बट उन बच्चों का या जनरेशन Z या जो हमारे मिलेनियल्स अभी आते हैं, सो एवरीबडी अंडर 30 जो कि अच्छे फॉरेन एजुकेटेड अच्छे स्किल्स एजुकेटेड एंड ग्लोबली बिलेबल है, उनको अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए होता है बिकॉज इनका स्क्रीन टाइम बहुत ज्यादा होता है। इनको अच्छा इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर चाहिए होता है, सीरीन व्यू चाहिए होता है, अच्छा वर्किंग एनवायरनमेंट चाहिए होता है। सो हाउ डू अट्रैक्ट आवर टॉप टैलेंट towards these technology zones? So technology zones as compared to special economic zones are also very aesthetically beautiful. So we call it as developing the national innovation and entrepreneurship ecosystem by setting up world-class technology destinations across Pakistan. That both the foreigners when come in gets a very different feel and foreigners would want to work because अब जो knowledge है वो इंसान का दिमाग है। तो fourth industrial revolution का जो थर्ड इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन से की डिफरेंस है वो फैक्टर ऑफ प्रोडक्शन में, जहां पे अब नॉलेज वर्कर इज द मेन इनपुट। और इस वक्त अगर आप दुनिया में देखें तो टेक्नोलॉजी के अंदर स्किल शॉर्टेज जो है वो बहुत ज्यादा, किसी भी आप IT कंपनी से बात कर लें तो स्किल शॉर्टेज क्रिएट हो गई है। एंड पाकिस्तान माइट बी सिटिंग ऑन द बिगेस्ट लेबर आर्बिट्राज अपॉर्चुनिटी ऑफ दिस सेंचुरी वेयर वी नीड टू कैलकुलेट एंड वी नीड टू डू अ लॉट ऑफ प्राइमरी रिसर्च कि अगर हम एक स्किल ऑफ द फ्यूचर पे एक बच्चे में $5,000 इन्वेस्ट करते हैं तो वो कितना जनरेट करेगा। एंड द कंपनीज आर डूइंग इट एंड दे आर मेकिंग अ लॉट ऑफ मनी। सो टू फैसिलिटेट ऑल दिस वी हैव सेट अप स्पेशल टेक्नोलॉजी जोन्स अथॉरिटी ताकि सारे एक जगह पे आए एंड देन दे कैन स्केल एंड क्रिएट दैट इकोनॉमीज ऑफ स्केल। जी थैंक यू।
Thank you very much, Hamza, for that very elaborate response. Just to summarize a couple of things that you have mentioned, we aim to exist because we want to be the technology makers instead of technology takers. We are going to be creating the clusters that will not only be present in Islamabad, as you have mentioned, that will be called Islamabad Technopolis, but it will be placed all across country, so it's accessible to all, regardless of rural or urban placements. We'll be attracting foreign technology companies. We will be supporting local startups and entrepreneurs also in the same facility. There's a certain skill shortage that we want to aim, and we want to make sure that the brain drain that's happening in Pakistan right now, that can be aimed back towards these technology sectors. Once again, thank you very much for that. Moving on to Rahim. Rahim, if you can elaborate for our audience, what are the core objectives of STZA on which we exist?
Ji, thank you, Hina, for the question. So Hamza, he's gone into providing the vision in a very detailed matters. So I'll add on to it. So the mandate of STZA is to create special technology zones, and we talked about why they are needed. So it's extremely important that at a national level, we promote, we foster innovation, we create an entrepreneurship ecosystem, and that can happen through setting up world-class technology destinations across Pakistan. So our core objective is to transform Pakistan's human capital into a high-end future workforce. So if you look at the last 1 year trend, so technology sector has been one of the fastest growing sector in Pakistan. If you look at our technology exports, so they have grown about 47% last year. In terms of the new IT companies, there's been an increase by 50% last year. So, so we are. So the idea is, how do we really scale it and accelerate it? And so the core objective is to set up those technology special technology zones across the country, and which can really help in achieving our core KPIs, which includes job creation, foreign direct investment, import substitution, diversifying our exports. So out of the $25 billion exports which Pakistan had last year, about $15 billion was just textile. Similarly, technology transfer, skill enablement, and human development. So these are our core KPIs, and we will measure ourselves on these. And the idea is to create what Hamza mentioned is in an enabling environment, not only for the tech industry, for freelancers, for startups, for this includes also VCs and investors. So how do we facilitate entrepreneurs, large IT companies, R&D centers, universities? So they all have to come together, and by creating those strong linkages in the tech zones, it will add to the GDP growth of the country. So the idea is that over the next 2 to 3 years, this ecosystem becomes a big catalyst for job creation, technology transfer, and economic growth. So it's a tried and tested model. We've got examples of Korea, China, the US, where the government has provided a legislative umbrella and incentives to blossom the technology sector. So our goals and objectives are again aligned with this vision, and we've already seen that starting to happen. And our idea is to really scale it at a national level. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahim. So what I find really interesting is that you mentioned that STZA has certain KPIs against which we'll be measuring ourselves. I think that's something that most of us are hearing for the first time from an autonomous body. KPIs means that you will put it out front for everybody to monitor us. It's not just for internal stake. So I think the KPIs that you mentioned, human capital development, increasing exports, import substitution, and foreign direct investment, these are all certain things that will have direct impact on every single person who is living in Pakistan. So thank you very much for elaborating those. Hamza, if you can, we have been using these terminologies very frequently now, zone enterprises and zone developers or co-zone developers at Special Technology Zones Authority. Could you please elaborate for the audience what is zone enterprise, what is zone developer, and what kind of organizations or enterprises are eligible as ZEs and ZDs?
Sure. But before this, I would like to add to what Rahim said. So Rahim used a very interesting phrase which said, "Ke legislative cover de hum, जो है टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर के लिए. So I think this is one of the most ignored part in terms of the government to provide comfort to national and international investors in the technology sector. So normally अगर हम पाकिस्तान में भी देखें तो तकरीबन सारे सेक्टर्स को काफी लेजिस्लेटिव कवर मिले हुए हैं. स्पेशल इकोनॉमिक जोन्स को लेजिस्लेटिव कवर मिला हुआ है. टेक्नोलॉजी सेक्टर या IT in itself was just this year recognized as an industry, और जो है which is a big breakthrough for the technology sector. But a bigger breakthrough I would feel is also the STZA legislation, which has been passed unanimously by the National Standing Committee at the National Assembly by all parties. It has been passed from the National Assembly as well, and inshallah जिस तरह हमारा पार्लियामेंट में रहा बहुत पॉजिटिव सेंटिमेंट, बिकॉज जो ओवरऑल कमेंट्स आए वो ये था कि दिस इज फॉर द फ्यूचर ऑफ पाकिस्तान एंड वी विल नॉट प्ले पॉलिटिक्स ऑन दिस. तो बड़ा कमाल एक जो है रियलाइजेशन भी और सपोर्ट भी आया. सो इशू इन्वेस्टर का जो है वो ये है कि 2021 में जो है वो आप हमें ये इंसेंटिव्स ऑफर कर रहे हैं, बट 2023 में जब गवर्नमेंट चेंज होगी विल बी एबल टू सॉर्ट ऑफ हैव दीज इंसेंटिव्स in future as well, because normally तो वो SRO निकल आता है या provincial level पे taxation change हो जाती है, तो वो थोड़ा, and I mean historically being from representing government as well, तो उसमें मुझे इस बात से कोई शर्म नहीं आएगी कि हमसे गलतियां हुई हैं, क्योंकि हम इन्वेस्टर को बहुत हाई होप्स दे के लाते हैं, एंड देन व्हेन दे आर हियर तो हमें हमारा फर्ज बनता है कि वी आर एबल टू गिव दैट comfort and certainty, because business all over the globe operates on certainty. If you can give them that certainty for a set period of time, they do a lot of decisions on that based on that certainty. लेकिन अगर आप certainty नहीं देंगे, so this legislation, which is a very powerful legislation for the technology sector, this will enable a lot of investor confidence, because ये अब पार्लियामेंट से होके और जो है एक प्रॉपर लॉ बन रहा है. तो मैंने कहा ये मैं एक ऐड कर दूं कि लेजिस्लेशन जो है वो हैज बीन क्रिटिकल, एंड आई एम ग्लैड कि ये जो है इस पे काफी तेज प्रोग्रेस हो रही है. जोन डेवलपर और जोन एंटरप्राइज पे और को जोन डेवलपर का मैं जो है आई ट्राई टू सिंप्लीफाई द कॉन्सेप्ट है ना. मेरा हल्का सा गिला आपसे ये, पहले आपने सवाल पूछा विजन, दैट इज ऑल्सो वेरी कॉम्प्लेक्स, एंड यू नो वो अब जोन डेवलपर जोन एंटरप्राइज का जो है वो आपने but
you can pick up one of these headings, and you can pick up zone enterprise and give the rest to Rahim.
I'm just kidding. So zone developer जो है, so I'll give an example ताकि वो example में ही clear हो जाए. Let's say कि एक entity है, एक legal entity है, और उसके पास 100 एकड़ land है. वो 100 एकड़ land जो है, और वो entity government की भी हो सकती है, वो public private partnership भी हो सकती है, और वो private investor भी हो सकता है. वो जो है STZA के पास आती है और वो कहती है जी ये 100 एकड़ है. तो हमारा पहला सवाल होगा कि क्या ये यूनिवर्सिटी के करीब है, क्योंकि इसमें अगर आप मेरे पहले सवाल की भी उस पे कि यहाँ पे इनपुट जो है वो नॉलेज वर्कर है. सो हमारा पहला सवाल होता है कि जी नॉलेज वर्कर्स कहाँ है, यूनिवर्सिटी कितनी दूर है, पब्लिक ट्रांसपोर्ट है नहीं है, यहाँ पे आप जो है वो चार्जेस क्या लेंगे. सो जोन डेवलपर answers and create a whole master plan कि जी यहाँ पे इतनी बिल्डिंग्स होंगी, ये मेरा स्टार्टअप का वो है, ये मेरे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग क्लस्टर होगा, ये मेरे. सो जोन as the name suggests is the one which develops that zone. ठीक है, तो उसने बाउंड्री वॉल बनानी है, उसने वहाँ पे बिजली पहुंचानी है, उसने बिल्डिंग्स बनानी है ताकि जो कंपनीज है वो उसको रेंट कर सके. जोन एंटरप्राइज जो है, those are those companies who are the end users. So मैं अक्सर एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूं, तो जो सिंप्लीफाई, जोन डेवलपर जो है वो अगर बिल्डिंग बनाता है तो वो बाकी को रेंट आउट कर सकता है. जोन एंटरप्राइज जो है वो भी बिल्डिंग बना सकता है, लेकिन वो बाकी को रेंट नहीं कर सकता, उसने खुद ही इस्तेमाल करनी होती है. तो जोन एंटरप्राइज का एक सिंपल एग्जाम्पल जो है वो ये है कि IBM फॉर इंस्टेंस आता है या कोई भी ग्लोबल कंपनी आती है और वो अपनी स्पेशलाइज्ड फैसिलिटी 10 फ्लोर बनाना चाहती है. ठीक है, इसी तरीके से अगर जोन डेवलपर भी आता है और वहां पे जो है 10 फ्लोर का बनाना चाहता है, तो जो जोन एंटरप्राइज है वो सिर्फ अपने लिए इस्तेमाल कर सकती है, जोन डेवलपर बाकी को भी रेंट कर सकता है. सो दे आर द मेन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपर फॉर द जोन, एंड द जोन एंटरप्राइज इज एंड कस्टमर. जोन एंटरप्राइज कैन बी अ स्टार्टअप, जोन एंटरप्राइज कैन बी अ SME, जोन एंटरप्राइज कुड बी अ वेंचर कैपिटल फर्म और अ ग्लोबल कंपनी. the zone developer are normally construction infrastructure company which creates that infrastructure for the zone enterprises. So this is the key difference. Co-zone developer जो है वो ये है कि जोन डेवलपर के पास जब 100 एकड़ होती है तो वो अपने साथ पार्टनर ला सकता है. तो फॉर इंस्टेंस उसने एक और कंपनी को कहा जी कि आप आ जाएं और आप 20 एकड़ मेरे साथ बना लें. इसी तरीके से सो जोन डेवलपर इज द वन हु ओन्स द लैंड and has the whole responsibility of the whole area. Co-zone developer are the partners of zone developer जिन्होंने एक specific area बनाने develop कर दी है. And फिर zone enterprise is basically customer to use that infrastructure. तो ये in its simplest way, मतलब I hope that I haven't been very confusing in this regard. But I am open to answering all the questions.
I think for everybody who's listening, they have further clarity on what zone enterprise and zone developers and co-developers are. I specifically mentioned this question because on all our social media channels, we have been recently, for example, we have opened applications for co-zone developers and in Islamabad Technopolis, and a month back we opened applications for zone enterprises. And as you're all aware, we have been getting questions about who is eligible and what is the zone enterprise. So I think this was very much needed clarity that you have provided. Right?
Sorry, मैं आपको कट कर रहा हूँ, but जो हमारे STZA rules हैं, it's a 25-page document available on our website, and वो काफी ज़्यादा explain करता है eligibility criteria में. Zone enterprise में हमारे कोई खास criterias नहीं है, मतलब it's very focused criteria. So startup के लिए बड़ा easy criteria है because we want our youth to benefit from this. SMEs, local SMEs के लिए बहुत easy criteria है. Large companies के लिए थोड़ा सा मुश्किल criteria because it's a large company है, और जो global companies हैं उनके लिए हमने relatively काफी अच्छे controls रखे हुए हैं. However, our focus is as a government, we are trying to set an example to become the first customer-oriented regulator where we facilitate our customers. However, एक जो मेरी advice होगी STZA की तरफ से वो ये है कि if you read that STZA qualification and eligibility rules 2021, तो जो सवाल होंगे वो हमें बड़े directed होंगे because बहुत सारी information उसी के अंदर included है.
I'll just like to add to what Hamza said. So we have tried to create FAQs in terms of the initial queries जो हमें आ रही थी. So we've created questions, answers, and provided answers. So those documents are also available on our website, both for zone enterprises and zone developers. And I would like to encourage everyone कि वो website पे जाएं, download those documents, read them, and if there are still queries, everyone is welcome to email us, and we will get back in the shortest possible time.
Thank you, Rahim, and thank you very much, Hamza. The website Hamza and Rahim has been referring to, it's also given in the ticker under video frame, which is www.stza.gov.pk. And the qualification document that Hamza was referring to, that's under the policies section. If you click on the policies tab, the document is already placed there. Also, there are two separate tabs available on our website. Apply for ZD, which is zone developer, and apply for ZE, which is zone enterprise. If you go on those specific links, it will it already has all the application criteria, eligibility criteria, FAQs, like Rahim has mentioned, that clarifies a lot of queries on that. So thank you very much, Rahim, Hamza, on that. Hamza has already picked up Rahim regarding Islamabad Technopolis, but I would like you to walk our audience through what is Islamabad Technopolis, where is it, why do we call it Islamabad Technopolis, and what are the opportunities and incentives being offered there. And also, before you answer that question, I'd like to give a disclaimer here that since Hamza has mentioned some of the global companies like IBM, etc., please treat those as examples only, though there is no definite confirmation from these companies that these are going to be the ones that are available they're present at Islamabad Technopolis. So Rahim, please elaborate on Islamabad Technopolis.
All the examples are for imagination purposes only. But normally I give names ताकि वो थोड़ा सा audience को जो है
visualize
make sense का पता लग जाए.
Thank you. Rahim.
Thank you, Hina. Like Hamza said, so the flagship zone is in Islamabad. It's called the Islamabad Techno Place, and the idea is you can call it Islamabad Techno Place or the Tech Zone or the Tech City. और उसकी वजह ये है, जैसे मैं पहले कह रहा था कि this is similar to how science and technology parks are. So this will comprise tech companies, startups, R&D facilities, universities, incubators within the ecosystem. So within that demarcated area, जहाँ incentives दिए जाएंगे, all these stakeholders will be a part of it. और उसका idea ये है कि incentives इसलिए दिए जा रहे हैं to attract the best idea, the best talent, और उनको nurture किया जाए through an ecosystem approach. So like Hamza said, the fourth industrial revolution. So it's very important that we have the knowledge workers, so scientists, architects, researchers, IT professionals, tech entrepreneurs. So they all come together to build the intellectual capital in the innovation cluster. So incentives are extremely important. We did also a regional comparison to see what kind of incentives are being offered by some of the other countries in the region. And I'm very pleased to say the incentives being offered by the government of Pakistan are over and above of some of the regional countries, and even compared to what our neighbors are offering. So there is 100% exemption to. I'll just go broadly through some of the incentives. So from a fiscal perspective, there is 100% exemption for 10 years on federal income tax. The excise duties are also exempted for 10 years. The dividend tax on dividend distribution is again exempted for about 10 years. At a federal level, we've also exempted the sales tax. There's exemption on custom duties. There's tax holiday for 10 years for the zone developers. The capital gains tax again is exempted, and the government is offering subsidized land and subsidized utilities for entities operating in the zone. In addition to this, there's a special forex regime, and these benefits are again way over and above of what is available to entities today in Pakistan outside the zone. And this includes basically a special set of FX regulations, and all the entities will be able to fully repatriate their investment profit and dividends. Similarly, all types of legitimate business payments are allowed abroad without any limitation and without the approval of the central bank. There's also all kind of inward remittances allowed, including both equity and loan, without the requirement of conversion into PKR. And there will be ease of opening and maintaining forex accounts. In addition to this, we are also working to establish a one window. And the idea is all the back-end working with all the government departments. So the back-end processes in terms of getting land allocation, utility connections, opening of bank accounts, approvals for visas, etc. So the authority, Special Technology Zones Authority, will be taking care of all these processes to facilitate companies and investors, and will make sure that the conducive and enabling environment is provided. So the federal government is extremely committed and will be providing all this support to make sure that the ease of operations for entities operating in the zone is both seamless and hassle-free. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahim. I think you've mentioned two very important aspects. Number one, the one window facility that is going to be offered to everybody who wants to be operating in these zones. I think that significantly reduces the time to market in terms of all those 10 or 15 entities that you have to go through whenever you try to register a company, open foreign bank accounts, and all those. So that is definitely going to be added to that ease of doing business criteria that Hamza was mentioning earlier. And the legislative framework that is made available, forex and fiscal, that you have highlighted also, that gives the benefits to all the entities that will be operating out of these zones. And as I understand correctly, these facilities, sorry, these all the legislative framework is also valid for not only Islamabad Technopolis, but all the zones that will be made active across Pakistan. Right. Okay. Hamza, if I can come back to you, I would like to you to walk us through the impacts, the key impacts we see happening in near future, let's say in a year's time, and then maybe somewhere in longer term, with these zones established across Pakistan.
Bilkul. So the first impact is normally I've also marketed Pakistan in the region, and I've been a frequent traveler to China. And थोड़ा सा हमें मसला होता था कि what to market in Pakistan, right? So the first impact is that Pakistan has now something very solid to sell internationally as well, and to the foreign investors. So the first is this, and we see a lot of focus on that front. Second is basically diversification of economic mix and enablement of transfer of technology. So I'll just give you an example. Jahan pe we talked to two investors. So one was bringing an assembly of certain product, and the other one was bringing production, a complete transfer of technology of that product. So we said no to the assembly, and I mean, to a large extent, we have been celebrating transfer of assemblies of various products in the past, but long term उसके अंदर हमारा जो है STZA का focus is very different. And जिस तरह रहीम ने जो है वो core objectives भी बताएं, तो हमारी जो licensing है that is programmed on this 7 KPIs. So हम सिर्फ FDI नहीं देखते, हम FDI के साथ transfer of technology देखते हैं, हम उसके साथ R&D देखते हैं, हम उसके साथ skill development देखते हैं, हम उसके साथ ये देखते हैं कि वो एक्सपोर्ट में क्या ग्रोथ करेगा और इंपोर्ट कितना सब्स्टिट्यूट करेगा. So these are all tech enabled. So one of the things that I also want to highlight is कि Pakistan's even now focus is IT and IT enabled services, which is becoming the backbone of exports growth in the future. But countries are now focusing on larger steps towards integrating technologies across all sectors. So special technology zones जो है वो agri-tech भी देख रहा है, वो biotech देख रहा है, वो health tech देख रहा है. So we're looking at technology at all across all sectors. So one of the big impact would जो कि आएगा वो ये है कि almost across the board बहुत सारे sectors जो हैं वो आप देखेंगे शायद मतलब it has been a steep learning opportunity for me, where legacy business coming in and talking about artificial intelligence की जो है ना software development, ठीक है कि क्योंकि so for instance oil and gas में companies आई हैं कि जी we want to develop products for global audiences and इसी तरीके से so आपके legacy sector जो है वो भी disrupt होना start हो जाएंगे. And first mover advantage यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा है क्योंकि दुनिया इस वक्त 30 साल आगे है. हमारे पास बहुत सारे जो एक्सपेरिमेंट्स बाहर हो रहे थे वो पाकिस्तान के अंदर नहीं हो रहे थे, तो वो भी होना स्टार्ट हो जाएंगे इन दिस टेक्नोलॉजी जोन. सो दिस इम्पैक्ट जो सेकंड है वो आपका ये है टेक्नोलॉजी इन ट्रांसफर एंड टेक्नोलॉजी इनेबलमेंट अक्रॉस वेरियस सेक्टर्स. द थर्ड इज योर इम्पोर्ट सब्स्टिट्यूशन, जिसमें लग्जरी गुड्स के अलावा जो इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स या टेक्नोलॉजी गुड्स हैं उस पे उसकी इंपोर्ट सब्स्टिट्यूशन होना. हम कोशिश ये कर रहे हैं कि जिसके इंपोर्ट बिल्स हमारे बहुत बड़े हैं जिन प्रोडक्ट्स के, टेक्नोलॉजी प्रोडक्ट्स के, वो टेक्नोलॉजी हम पाकिस्तान के अंदर शिफ्ट कर लें. तो जो है ये थर्ड वो है. द फोर्थ बिग impact would be the perception in itself. So I'll give you an example. Probably some people wouldn't like me giving this example, but I'll be very blunt on it. So just to give ये हम चाइना पाकिस्तान इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर जो है उसकी इतनी बात करते हैं, and we have been celebrating, and it has been an excellent project for Pakistan's economic security and infrastructure as well, infrastructure security as well. But I mean looking back, अगर तो स्पेशल टेक्नोलॉजी जोन्स उस वक्त होते तो जो है जो हम थर्मल पावर हमारे थर्मल पावर प्लांट्स में दुनिया की बेस्ट टेक्नोलॉजी, अल्ट्रा क्रिटिकल टेक्नोलॉजी लगी हुई है जो कि जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक बनाते हैं। अब जनरल इलेक्ट्रिक को जहाँ $3-4 बिलियन की मार्केट जो है उसका एक्सेस मिल रहा था, irrespective, we need that technology. So coming back to technology makers and technology takers argument, we could have convinced GE that okay, you get $3-4 billion of projects, but you invest and create an R&D center or some sort of manufacturing facility here, because आपके लिए वो है। तो उसका फायदा ये होता कि अभी हमारे 5,000 इंजीनियर्स भी ट्रेन हो चुके होते, वो टेक्नोलॉजी जो है वो हम बाहर भी एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे होते। और सो इट्स अबाउट मिक्स, इकोनॉमिक मिक्स के हम किस तरह निगोशिएट करते हैं। सिमिलरली रहीम के साथ अभी वी वर इन अ कॉन्वर्सेशन जहाँ पे टियर 4 डेटा सेंटर के बारे में बात होती है। पाकिस्तान में टियर 4 डेटा सेंटर की बड़ी सख्त ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि उसका हमारे साइबर सिक्योरिटी, इवन हमारे गवर्नमेंट वेबसाइट्स आप देख लें, आप बाकी वेबसाइट्स देख लें, हम ज़्यादातर गूगल के और अमेजोन के वेब सर्विसेज इस्तेमाल कर रहे होते हैं, एंड वी पे टेंस ऑफ मिलियंस ऑफ डॉलर्स, और smaller companies and big companies pays tens of millions of dollars for the cloud services, right? So there is a strong business case, but वो क्यों नहीं आ पाया? क्योंकि जब आप tier 4 डेटा सेंटर का इक्विपमेंट लाते हैं तो उस पर 35% इम्पोर्ट की कस्टम्स ड्यूटी है। सो एक लग्जरी गुड, एक एक जो है ना चॉकलेट पे 35% की समझ आती है, बट आपकी टेक्नोलॉजी विच इज क्रिटिकल टू योर इकोनॉमिक सिक्योरिटी, टू क्रिटिकल टू योर स्केलिंग अप ऑफ टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज, क्लाउड स्पीड, ये सारी चीजें, तो वो थोड़ा सा हम जो पब्लिक इन्वेस्टमेंट्स हैं उनको प्रायोरिटाइज भी कर रहे हैं। और देयर इज अ डिफरेंट सॉर्ट ऑफ पब्लिक पॉलिसी प्रोग्रामिंग वेयर द गवर्नमेंट विल नाउ इन्वेस्ट in high growth technology sector, because when you bring in a tier 4 data center here, you get to have a lot of benefits enabled for other companies. For instance, banks जो हैं वो आधी टेक्नोलॉजी कंपनीज बन गई है, क्योंकि उन्होंने अपना डेटा पाकिस्तान के अंदर पार करना है, and they invest a lot of money, so वो कोर बिजनेस से हट गए। So there are tens of examples that we can give. So one major वो would be कि जो बड़ी कंपनीज हैं या छोटी कंपनीज हैं उनकी टेक्नोलॉजी इनेबलमेंट। तो ये 4-5 बड़े impact, and the sixth is the perception in itself, which is related to something that Pakistan has now something solid to sell internationally. And I think Rahim can add on this.
Thank you, Hamza, for that very elaborate discussion or impact that is very absolutely necessary. Rahim, as Hamza has already routed the question to you, specific to job creation, if you would like to highlight some of the impacts that we might see in coming years because of these technology zones that we are aiming to establish across Pakistan.
Sure. And, just to add to what Hamza was saying, so I think it's important. I don't know how many people know that in the 1960s, in 1960 specifically, Pakistan's export was close to $160 million, and Korea's export was $32 million. So Korea has now crossed $500 billion in exports, where we are at $25 billion, right? And this has happened in the last few decades. How because of the impact the technology has brought in terms of disrupting other sectors, and how these countries took the advantage in terms of providing that ecosystem and creating that ecosystem and really scaling it up. I think with specific to the job creation, right? So, like first I mentioned, we're already seeing this the concept of entrepreneurship, right? The number of companies growing in the tech sector. Secondly, Pakistan is now, I think, third or fourth biggest country in terms of the number of freelancers. So, again, a big knowledge worker population has been created, which is providing services to clients both locally and abroad. Secondly, so we've been talking to both the tech companies locally and internationally, and because of what's happened in COVID in terms of the digitalization getting extremely accelerated, there's a global shortage now in terms of human capital and talent. And the skill set required for global companies, specifically in the tech sector, So that gap has between the demand and supply gotten widened post COVID. So I think it's a great opportunity for expanding our technology sector locally, bringing in international companies, and growing our base of the tech industry. So all this will result in the job creation. So Hamza talked about technology makers. So we need to promote and move towards made in Pakistan brand, right? So when we will have the technology transfer happening, we'll have products and services being locally produced and the ecosystem growing. So that naturally will result in the demand, and on the supply side, we are extremely focused again on skill development. So, and hence when you have universities, you have R&D centers, you have the tech industry, you can build that skill set in the knowledge worker, which will train them to be occupied based on the demand which we are already seeing, not locally, but in fact also globally.
Thank you very much, Rahim. Before we proceed with the formal flow, I think there are a couple of questions from the live audiences that are coming in. I'd like to pick one of those questions here. Akhtar Khan is asking, how are you improving the quality of education and technical skills to meet the global market? Also, are you working with Pakistanis living abroad who have experience that can be used? Hamza or Rahim, if you'd like
So I'll
to.
start, and Hamza, please add on, right? So I think so. The trend, one of the trend we have seen in the tech industry is, the acquiring of specific skill set. So a lot of large tech companies have moved or moving towards specialized skill set and specialized certification. For example, Google has launched its own certification pathways and platforms. And so if you complete those certifications and get those technical trainings, you can be employed by Google or some of the other tech companies. So I think what we are focused is working to realize what's the global and local shortage in the tech space, like I mentioned, and really work with some of the large companies, large boot camps globally, which provide these 6 month to 1 year trainings on the skill set which is short in the market. And so the idea is to really start that program and then scale it up in terms of providing our youth and graduates with that skill set to enable them to work not only for local but, like I said, international companies. We've spoken to some of the large big tech companies, and even there, at a global level, there's shortage of the technical skill set, and there have been conversations where they are happy to employ people from Pakistan or provide jobs to people in Pakistan if we can provide that supply of talent there. Hamza, do you want to add anything?
जी बिल्कुल इसके अंदर apart from this we're also talking to a lot of communities and Pakistani diaspora are doing well in global technology companies, and we have a very consultative approach. और जो हमारी अपनी भी within the authority, we have done extensive research on the new education systems that are popping up across the globe, which are called boot camps. तो ये boot camps भी जो है इसके अंदर there is a range of skill set levels. So some are really advanced for the and elite programs for the brightest kids, where they guarantee jobs and have great six-figure salaries annually in dollar terms. And then there are boot camps which are focused on lower skill sets but make them, sort of billable. So we are exploring, and we are looking at models that can be created for Pakistan. We are also talking to some microfinancing institutions and other government departments on how to partner and create an outcome based an outcome-based boot camp or education systems, short courses where our graduates. So just to give you an example, Pakistan has a lot of STEM graduates. So there are we have a lot of mathematicians, physicists, engineers, and I mean these kids are really great at math, right? And which is the, I think, foundational for computer science. Now, for instance, a person who knows statistics can be converted into a Python mid-level developer or within 4 to 6 months. And normally अगर उसको सिर्फ मैथमेटिक्स आती है तो वो 15,000 की जॉब पे लगता है, बट द मोमेंट ही हैज पाइथन ऑन स्किल सेट जिसपे वो वही स्टैटिस्टिक्स की प्रोग्रामिंग कर रहा है, वो एकदम से 5 टाइम्स 10 टाइम्स जो है वो मल्टीप्लाई हो जाती है उसकी बिलिबिलिटी. तो पाकिस्तान में एट STZA वी आर फेसिंग सम इश्यूज एंड आई वुड वांट, दिस इज आल्सो मतलब इनविटेशन फॉर पार्टनरशिप जहाँ पे हमें प्राइमरी रिसर्च मिल जाए. सो हम HEC से बात कर रहे हैं, अप्रोचिंग अ लॉट ऑफ कंपनीज के प्राइमरी डेटा मिल जाए कि बच्चों की किस लेवल पे स्किल्स हैं, उनके क्या एप्टीट्यूड है, वो कहाँ पे अच्छे हैं. So people great at arts could go into design thinking because that's another, I mean, China is a huge market for design thinking because वो although calculations में तो बहुत अच्छे हैं, but वो जो है ना UI developer, UI और UX में इतने अच्छे नहीं है. So there are small markets and technology में छोटी market जो है वो $15 billion तो वो बिल्कुल मतलब ignore करते हैं. They look at $1 trillion opportunities. तो Pakistan has a lot of opportunity on that front. थोड़ा सा हमारा human capital में approach हल्की सी different है इसका.
Thank you, Rahim, and thank you very much, Hamza, on that. Just as you guys mentioned earlier also, the concept of zone also include academia partnership, and the core reason of having those universities right across, 10 feet away is that the technology skill shortages that are available or that are somebody is forcing in a technology company, the same could be created in that university. The kids who are graduating from a university, they can start working with those technology companies for their own learnings, and the cycle keeps on going on. One very important question that keeps on coming up during our engagements one-to-one and on social media as well. Islamabad Technopolis, which is a greenfield right now, and we just have, there will be a construction, there will be certain development. Is there any other model available where a startup or an SME or a tech company can come in and start operating in about, for example, a month in Islamabad or Lahore or Karachi, for example? Right? Or
I think I'll take that question. So yeah. Yes, definitely. We're looking at existing infrastructure, and just to give you an update, we had an excellent meeting last week with the Chief Minister, Honorable Chief Minister Punjab, Mr. Usman Buzdar as well. और जो है उनकी सारी पंजाब गवर्नमेंट की लीडरशिप जो है चीफ सेक्रेटरी से लेके सेक्रेटरी टू द CM एंड सेक्रेटरी इंडस्ट्रीज एंड देन हेड ऑफ स्पेशल मॉनिटरिंग यूनिट एंड नाउ वी आर क्रिएटिंग अ वेरी हाई लेवल जॉइंट वर्किंग ग्रुप विद देम एज वेल. एंड उसके अंदर हम शॉर्ट टर्म और मिड टर्म की स्ट्रैटेजी ले लें. शॉर्ट टर्म के अंदर वी आर ट्राइंग टू आइडेंटिफाई suitable existing infrastructure and notify it as zones. But policy level pay, we have to, we are benchmarking. So one of the methodology that we use at the Special Technology Zone Authority is कि जब भी हम कोई step उठाते हैं तो हम global benchmarking कर लेते हैं कि for instance कोरिया ने इसको किस तरह किया, क्योंकि हम एक फ़ायदा है लेट होने का 20-30 साल कि वो बाकी मुल्क की चीज़ें कर चुके हैं, तो हम उन्हीं से सीख लेते हैं और उनकी गलतियों से जो है वो हम कोशिश करें कि वो गलतियां हम ना करें जो बाकी मुल्कों ने की हैं. सो देयर आर सर्टेन मॉडल्स दैट वी आर लुकिंग एट, बट पाकिस्तान इज यूनिक इन टर्म्स ऑफ, क्योंकि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में 18th अमेंडमेंट है, प्रोविंसेस का डिफरेंट, प्रोविंसेस के पास कुछ पावर है, कुछ फेडरेशन के पास पावर है. तो एक जो हम काम कर रहे हैं वो जॉइंट वर्किंग ग्रुप बना रहे हैं एंड वी आर टेकिंग अ वेरी कंसल्टेटिव अप्रोच वेयर हम ये कह रहे हैं कि जो फेडरल ने एक इंसेंटिव पैकेज था वो बना लिया, हमने एक मॉडल बना दिया जिसमें हमने ये वो रखा कि प्राइवेट एग्जिस्टिंग इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नोटिफाई हो सकता है. तो इस्लामाबाद के अंदर भी वी आर टॉकिंग टू वेरियस गवर्नमेंट एजेंसीज, पब्लिक बिल्डिंग्स एज वेल, कुछ प्राइवेट की तरफ से भी इंटरेस्ट आया है, एंड वी आर क्रिएटिंग दैट फ्रेमवर्क, एंड इंशाल्लाह ताला विद इन 30 to 60 वर्किंग डेज we will be able to create that model in Islamabad. जहाँ तक provinces के बारे में बात है, वहाँ पे चूंकि हम थोड़ा सा provinces से leadership चाह रहे हैं, we will have more of a supporting role and also an advisory role. तो वहाँ पे हम consultation कर रहे हैं, हम हमारे वो हम suggest करते हैं कि ये models हैं, and probably every province can take their own route, or maybe एवरी प्रोविंस डिसाइड्स के हम एक यूनिफॉर्म राउट रखते हैं, और जो है ये बट वो फ्रेमवर्क में भी थोड़ा सा जो है वो टाइम लगेगा. ऑल्सो STZA इज जस्ट 5 to 6 months ओल्ड, तो जो है कॉन्सेप्चुअली भी गवर्नमेंट के साथ, मुख्तलिफ डिपार्टमेंट्स के साथ लाइन अप करना और उसके साथ स्ट्रीमलाइन करना, दैट विल टेक सम टाइम, बट इंशाल्लाह ताला विद इन अ ईयर वी विल हैव सम एसेट्स जो कि notify हुए होंगे across the country.
Thank you very much, Hamza, for much needed clarity. I hope everybody who's listening in has gotten the grasp of that. Also, we just want to reiterate that we have about 4 minutes left, and we have over 10 questions that have come in from the audience. We'll try to pick up a couple of them, and for the rest of them, I can promise that within next 24 hours, we'll send a written down response to you in person also. I'd like to pick a question from Khalilur Rahman. He's saying we want to invest in STZA, but we don't have any guideline. If we want to invest 20 to 40 million PKR, please let us know all possible options, keeping in mind we are not IT experts or even startups. Rahim.
So I think, Hina, yeah, I'll take it. So I think any entity first need to decide whether they qualify as a zone enterprise or a zone developer or a co-zone developer. So these are mainly the two routes which can lead towards potentially a license from STZA. So I would recommend everyone again to go to the website, read the rules which are available there, which were approved by the federal cabinet, go through all the FAQs, and if you have any queries on the application process. So the zone enterprise application process is quite straightforward. You have to provide your business plan. There are application guidelines available out there, and you have to submit your proposal as well as the financials, and basically identify what kind of innovative technology you're working on or you're proposing to work on. So it's quite straightforward, and we are happy to help. Like Hamza said, our approach is extremely facilitative. We'll work with everyone to provide guidance and feedback, and you can email us, and we'll be happy to provide you with any clarifications or questions. But as a start, it's extremely important that everyone goes through the FAQs, the application criteria, the rules, etc., to have that clarity.
Thank you, Rahim. Just an elaboration on the same question. There were a couple of more comments that came on that also. Hamza, if you can elaborate how VCs will be, placed in the zones that we will be forming, and if individuals like Akhtar has mentioned, they can be part of those VCs as angel investors or smaller investors, and they can invest in the startups or other SMEs that are looking to expand in Pakistan.
I
think Rahim would want to.
I'm happy to take that. So I think it's extremely critical to understand how the startup landscape has changed in Pakistan, and it's changing. And it comes back to, the core of our discussion today, that the steps which are taken to provide an enabling ecosystem and an inclusive environment, that over time, then you start seeing the results. So, I can personally relate to it, being part of that ecosystem from the government side, and providing those incentives and creating those legislative changes. So Hamza talked about incentives which are backed by legislation. I think it's an extremely important point. So we did the same for the startup ecosystem. A lot of people, both from the government side, the private sector side, VC startups, and we should acknowledge the role the startup founders have played in really putting Pakistan on the global map. So, and as we see today, so the kind of investment startups have raised in Pakistan this year, which is cumulatively over uh, the over the last previous 5 years combined, in terms of the total amount raised so far. And I think this is only the beginning and ready, and our ecosystem is ready to take off. So what is happening is, uh, because Pakistan startup ecosystem is going on the global map, there is a lot of interest from investors and VCs, and there have conversations which have happened with us as well. And for them, especially the regional and the global VCs, I think what they're looking at is to have offices on the ground, hire their staff, have people who can then again be close to the startup ecosystem and the tech companies. And this brings back our conversation earlier of the knowledge ecosystem. So they want to be close to the startup industry, they want to be close to the tech industry, so they can have conversations, build those linkages, etc. And what we expect is the VCs coming into the zone, setting up their offices, and getting all the support from the government, and then building those linkages. So so they can start building their, and increasing their pipeline of investments into the tech ecosystem in Pakistan. So it's probably a long answer, but I wanted to link it back on what's happened on the ecosystem, and how these conversations and the linkages with VCs are maturing.
I think absolutely necessary, Rahim. Thank you very much for that. We have bypassed our allocated time for this session today. I would like to thank everybody who has been listening to us patiently, and all the questions that have come in. Once again, for all the questions that have remained unanswered, I have committed that we will be responding to those questions within the next 24 hours. And there will be series of webinars or Facebook Live sessions that we'll be hosting in coming weeks as well. So those questions can be, if they need an elaborate discussion, we can always pick up those questions in those sessions. Rahim, thank you very much. Hamza, thank you very much for joining in for this session on a weekend. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for hosting us. Thank you for inviting us. And I would request everyone to visit our Twitter pages, LinkedIn page, Facebook page, and keep looking at the website. We will be posting our key updates, and as we progress in this journey, and also keeping everyone informed on the KPIs we talked about. So please, subscribe to our social media handlers to monitor the progress we make.
Thank you. Any final comments, Hamza, please?
Thank you, Hina. And I think I've had enough to talk. Sorry, Rahim. I think I was planning that you'll talk more today because of your deep knowledge about startup ecosystem. But I think just a disclaimer that this is first in the series, and you will inshallah see a lot of initiatives on sector-specific webinars as well. For instance, on venture capital, IT and IT-enabled services, agri-tech, and how we are focusing on each sector.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your time.
Yeah, and please, if there's feedback, if there's suggestions, please reach out to us. We're very happy to open to receiving feedback and looking at how we can work together with all the stakeholders to make this initiative success for Pakistan.
Absolutely. This is the most important, I think, message for this session, that this is a autonomous body that has been created under the government of Pakistan, but this is our country, and such initiatives should need support from everybody who is looking to make Pakistan great. We'll be looking forward to your comments and questions, and thank you very much once again.